with another video. Today I want to share with you a wrap up because it's the beginning of May now and I decided to do a monthly wrap up of all of the things that I've finished in April and let you know that onwards, hopefully, if I get myself around to it, I'll be doing weekly wrap-ups again. I mean, I have been doing Monday reads this past month and where I'm talking about the books, but I think I'm just gonna make it to a wrap-up session and then not think about what day of the week that I'm posting it, but trying to keep up to date with whatever I'm doing. Also because I have started reading a little bit again, more and more again, and so hopefully this will encourage me to keep doing that and keep the pace that I'm currently working on. So in April I ended up finishing 13 books, which is definitely the highest of the year for me so far. I've previously been around 10 or 11 books. 10 books in March and 10 books in January, and then I was 7 books in February, so 13 books in April was definitely great, also considering how many of the books were actually me reading physically with my own eyeballs. And I know that a lot of them are short, but whatever works for you right now to get you back into your reading again, that is great. On the other hand, I did listen to some quite long audiobooks to make up of the short physical books. So the first thing that I finished in April was Selfies by Jussi Adler-Olsen. The English title is The Scarred Woman. This is the seventh book in the Department Q series. This is a series that follows Carl Merck, who is the leader of this investigations team called Department Q, where they're researching cold cases. And Carl has these two assistants. One of them is Assad, who is a Syrian refugee, and the other one is Rowe, who came into the book, I think in his second book, to be part of the department. And this one focuses a lot on what happened to her. There's also another mystery going on, but they're sort of connected in a way. And you definitely have to figure out why Rosa is as she is. She is suffering from schizophrenia and has other mental diseases that makes it difficult for her to get a work balance going. And she had a setback in the previous book because of something that happened, and now we're getting a deep dive into actually what happened to her and getting to know a lot more about it. It was a difficult read. The series is definitely very, very dark, so you definitely have to think about that before you go into it, because it's not an easy read in that way. I was completely immersed in the story because they were so gripping. He has a way of writing characters that really gets to me, that I get to feel for the characters in a way that I probably don't do with other like crime novelists. That's why I don't read a lot of crime fiction, because they don't tend to grab me the same way that Jussi, for instance, does it. The overall mystery I really enjoyed following, but the main thing that I really enjoyed about it was actually finding out more about Rosa. There's been a lot of things that were talking about it. I figured out a little bit more as time goes, but obviously she's trying to keep her personal struggles a secret to the team, so it's not something that we've known, also because we only see things from Carl's perspective, usually from the Department Q, as well as the victim of this, sometimes a villain, like a murder perspective. Sort of jumps a little bit in time as well. But in this one we also had Rosa's perspective, we had Carl's perspective, and we had the victim of some of murder victims and the villain. I super enjoyed listening to this one. It was a rather fast read, considering it's still, even though it's over 500 pages, it was really fast moving book, and I ended up giving it 4.5 stars, so I definitely enjoyed it. It was better than the previous one, because that's probably one of my least favorite in the series, but I definitely enjoyed this one. The second book that I finished in April was Wyoming, Cowboy Justice by Nicole Helm. This is the first book in the Carson Santilani series. This is the last book that I finished for the Harlequin intrigue that I did in March and into April, as you see. I'll leave a link to my vlog of that up above so you can check it out. This one is following Laurel Delaney and Grady Carson. They are from two families that has always hated each other. They're living in this really small town in Wyoming. Our main character Laurel, our female male character, Laurel, as I said, is, I don't think I said this, but she's a police deputy in the town, and she is in a murder investigation of her cousin, like a distant cousin. She doesn't really know him, but she finds that our main male character's younger brother is the only witness to this, so she sort of needs to talk to him, and she doesn't think that he is the one who did it, but she doesn't know, and she wants to make sure that she wants to find a way, an alibi or something like that, so she can cross him off and work further on the investigation, because usually people would just say that it's a cousin who did it, kind of thing. So she reluctantly goes to seek out Grady. Grady is this bar owner of this very sort of saloon kind of a bar in the town, and she goes to talk to him, try and figure out if she can find the younger brother, and he decides he wants to help her figuring out what happened, because he wants to clear his younger brother's name. And while she tries to persuade him not to be part of this, she ends up reluctantly letting him tag along and helping her out with the investigation, and it turns out for there. So it's sort of a haters to lovers thing going on, and it's yeah, I overall just absolutely love this book. I don't know what I expected when I picked it up. I definitely thought that when I started my Harlequin intrigue line thing, that I didn't think this was going to be my favorite at all. I think it's because I don't know the author, I don't know anything about this, and the cover just didn't feel like it would be something, and the title either. Okay, the cover is super misleading, because the main male character is this big burly guy with a big beard, or with a beard at least, and on the cover here we have a very slim guy, clean face and all of that. So I don't know who decided to go with the cover choice here, because it's definitely very misleading. But I love this one. As I said, I ended up giving it 5 out of 5 stars. I definitely want to continue with the series. I have actually, I think, bought all the sequels to this in a physical copy. We'll see when it gets here. I've bought 2 Awesome Bookstore cover orders, and they have been really slow to get here, so I don't know if they have come stuck in somewhere in the slower mail processing thing. We will see when it shows up. It did say it would come at the end of April, and we're in May now, so we'll see. One of the things that I really enjoyed about it was that, compared to the other books that I read for this line, they were very fast-paced, high-stakes, something happened all the time. And while I really enjoyed that, it was very fun to read it. It kept you on the edge of your seat, and you just want to pick up the book all the time. This one was slower moving. It was a slow burn mystery where you're sort of slowly building up, and as the mystery evolves, it becomes faster and faster paced in that area. But the romance itself also really flowed very naturally. So I ended up overall just loving this book a lot, and ended up giving it 5 out of 5 stars. It's one of my favorite books of the year. I haven't given out very many 5 stars, so just wanted to mention that. So the third book that I finished in April was Of Spice and Men by Sarah Fox. This is the third book in the Pancake House mystery. This is a mystery that's set in a small, I don't know if it's a small town, in this town where we have a woman who now is the owner of this pancake house, and in this town they have an acting crew coming to visit. They are shooting a film or something there, and for some reason our main character has to go and talk to someone at the trailer park thing, and when she comes there she finds out that the person is dead or dying, and so she is eager to figure out who did it. And then it turns out that her current boyfriend in this book, ex, is part of this acting crew and is the lead suspect in the case. So they're trying to figure out what happened and trying to figure out if she actually did it and sort of clear her name. Overall, I didn't really care for the mystery element of this one, and I also didn't super care for the other things that happened in this one. So it wasn't my favorite. It was my least favorite in the series. it was okay. I listened to it through it completely, but then I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. It was definitely not my favorite. The next thing that I finished was Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. This is the first book in the Brown Sisters series. I picked this up after all of the hype that I've heard. Obviously, I needed to figure out what happened with what's going on with this series, why everyone was so in love with this series. And we're following Chloe Brown, who is, as I said, suffering with chronic pain, and she has made a list of things she wants to do in order to get a life, as she said. Then we're following this male lead who is like living in the same building as her, and they has already looked at each other from a distance, but now they started talking to each other, and he decides to help her with checking off things from her list, kind of thing, and it goes from there. It's a really cute romance. I really enjoyed it. I loved how they were together, like both in the build-up of the relationship, but also in the relationship area. I think that it was well written. It was quite steamy, but I also heard that it was going to be steamy, so I knew that going into it, so I didn't mind it. It was actually very well written. I'm not in love with it as everyone else seems to be, but I definitely enjoyed it, and I see the merit, and I understand why it's very popular. But I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars, and I'm very eager to figure out what would happen in the other books in this series, because I'm definitely intrigued to find out what the other sisters has in store for them. Next up, I finished another ebook, and that was Hope Divided by Alyssa Cole. This is the second book in the Loyal League series. This is a historical romance set in the Civil War era. We're following this interracial romance between Marlene or Malone or Marley. I've forgotten the male lead's name. Our female lead has grown up in this house called the Lynchwood House, and she's always been grown up as being looked at as an equal. She's part of the family, she's part of the house, and all of that. But then suddenly, a family relative comes into the house from a distance, kind of thing, and it changes everything in the house, and she's suddenly looked at as very negatively, like in terms of racial stuff. And then we're also following our male character, who is like a prisoner after having done so. He's on a prison camp, and he escapes this prison camp and comes to this Lynchwood house and is in hiding, kind of thing, and she hides him away and protects him from those other people to find him. And at the same time, our female lead, she has this diary of her mother's. That's the only thing she has left of her after she passed away, and she's sort of trying to figure out what it says, but it's in French, and she's not very good at French. But then our male lead is actually good at French, so he helps her figuring out, helps her translate the stuff to figure out more. And so I really enjoyed that process of it. But then as time goes, the racial stuff becomes more and more prominent, and she actually has to flee the house in order to protect herself. So overall, this was difficult to read because of all of these things that happened in this one. I didn't enjoy the romance as much in this one as I did in the first one, as well as the characters themselves. I loved the first characters from the first one a little bit more than this one. So I ended up giving this book 3.5 out of 5 stars and not 4 stars, because the first book was a 4 stars, so I lowered this down a little bit because of my personal enjoyment. But I definitely still recommend this series because I think it's really well written. The next thing I finished was Secret Cross Seduction by Jayci. This is the second book in the Heirs of Hansel series. This is a Harlequin Desire. This is following Garrett from the first book's younger sister. She is sort of known as the rebel of the group. So her grandmother has started thinking that she might not be fit for the Hansel dynasty, the company that they own. But she wants to prove everyone wrong, because she wants to be part of this company in the future, and she definitely wants to prove that she can be trusted and she can be deemed worthy of being part of this company in the future. So decides to build up this charity event, as well as sort of a new fashion line, and sort of starting that. And on the side we have Garrett's best friend Nick. Our female lead is called Adelaide. I think he's called Nick. And he is the owner of this marketing firm thing, and has always been dealing with the press relations in terms of the household company. And in this case, he's trying to protect Adelaide from stuff coming out, negative stuff coming out about her when she's trying to do this job. And as time goes, they become more and more friendly. Like, they've always been known each other because he's always come to the house and she's always had a crush on him. So yeah, and he's a lot older than her. So overall, so this is where the romance starts off and where the story builds. And overall, I like this one. It wasn't bad at all. I definitely thought that both of the characters were very interesting, but it did use one of my least favorite sort of tropes in romances, and then the miscommunication trope. Our male lead has been divorced from a previous relationship. Like, he's divorced, and not that that's a secret, but he was divorced because that he wasn't able to have kids, and his ex-wife wanted a family, and so he didn't know how. He decided not to tell her about it, and instead like make the decision that they were not fit for each other, and without her getting a say, like our main character Adelaide getting a say in this matter. And yeah, it just annoyed me a little bit that ended up being the conflict of the book, and that they didn't talk to each other before that. But otherwise, I enjoyed the romance. I thought it was very steamy. It was I also think it was steamier than the first book, if I remember correctly. But yeah, I ended up giving this book 3.5 out of 5 stars because it was slightly not as good as the first book in the series that I super enjoyed. But I also like that it didn't become like suddenly she had a baby, she was able to be pregnant and stuff like that, because that sometimes happens when people have infertility problems, and then suddenly they can have a kid anyway. Oops, whoops. And it was actually kind of nice to see someone struggling and it not being resolved with suddenly there was a baby. The next thing that I finished was a Danish fantasy book, and that's called Den Halves Arv, which is the first book in the series Grænsen til Trefallas. And the title in English will be probably The Legacy of the Halves. And the series title is Borders of Trefallas. This is YA fantasy. We follow this girl who she sees this parchment of paper, and she is able to see that, like, she gets such a strange feeling when she views it. She's not able to understand what it says, and because of this, it ends up sweeping her into this other world known as Trefallas. This is a world where it's filled with these elves who they're definitely a completely different world from hers, and she finds out that she's half elves, half human, and that's why it's called The Legacy of the Half. And they have been separated for years because they are afraid what the elves can do with the half humans power, because they are able to enhance their own magical powers, I think. Overall, I enjoyed the story. It was a well-built fantasy book, but I didn't like the romance. I thought the romance was very like instant. Like, from like one chapter to the next they were sort of in love kind of thing. It just didn't work for me that way. And there were places where it was a little bit predictable, but overall I enjoyed it, and I ended up giving it actually 4 out of 5 stars. On that same day, I also finished Castle in the Air by Dianna Wynne Jones. This is the second book in the House Moved Castle series, and this book follows Abdullah, who is helping his family by selling carpets on the street. But at night he's dreaming that he is a prince, and he has found this girl called Flower in the Night, who they decide to marry, but then she is abducted by a djinn, and he has to figure out what happens, because then suddenly things actually becomes real thing, and he is on a journey to figure out where they took Flower in the Night and rescue her from the evil djinns. And yeah, it goes from there. Overall, I enjoyed this. Dianna Wynne Jones's writing is so enjoyable. It's like just the sort of writing style that I love in my middle grade books. It's like so compelling, but at the same time I didn't enjoy Abdullah and Flower in the Night, sort of that storyline, so much, because they weren't. I really just missed Sophie and Howl from this one, from the first book. They were really great characters, and they were only in it like the last. Sophie was in it like the last couple of chapters, And I think Hal was a present one in like the last chapter or something like that. But I still enjoyed it because it was still fun and readable and stuff, but it's definitely not as good as the first one. But I ended up giving this book 4 out of 5 stars, so I'm definitely looking forward to reading the third and final book in this series, and actually anything else by Diana Wynne Jones, because her writing style is just so perfect. The next thing that I finished was Gravesite by Charlaine Harris. This is the first book in the Harper Connolly series. This is the first time I'm reading something that's outside of the Suki Stackhouse world from her, and it was very, very interesting. We're following this girl called Harper Connolly. She is able to see dead people if she's close area to a body, she can find it, and she can also see the last minutes of the life and figure out what the cause of death is. And she comes to this small town who has sought her out, and when she does find the body, she also finds that that body is a murder victim. And there's more to this town than first seen. There are actually 3 murders in the same family. 4 murders in the same family that happen quite after each other, but she's not able to see who did it. She's just able to see what the cause of death is, so she can determine if it's a murder or if it's just a natural cause of death kind of thing. Overall, I really enjoyed this. It was a quite dark mystery. A lot of things were happening. I kind of enjoyed Harper and her brother's relationship. Like, she has a brother who is like helping her with things. She's able to see ghosts after the lightning struck her early on in her life kind of thing. And I also enjoyed sort of the relationship she had with this police deputy thing, but I overall enjoyed this. I couldn't put it down. It was a super fast read. It was not my favorite thing in the whole world, but it was very, very entertaining, and I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. So I'm definitely intrigued to figure out what happens in the next ones. So yeah, happy to have tried out something else by Charlaine Harris that's not Suki Stackhouse, and actually enjoying it, because that definitely gives me the hope that I will be able to read some of her other books as well. The next thing that I finished was Forging Divinity or Divinity. I still haven't figured out how to pronounce that properly. This is the first book in a series. It's by Andrew Rowe, who is the same author as Sufficiently Advanced Magic. So I was a little nervous when I didn't end up enjoying this one. This is a sort of dual perspective thing. I think 3 perspectives actually, if I remember correctly. And I never really got into this one. I never got invested. It wasn't really gripping my attention very much. And so I know it's one of his earliest novels. I think it might be his debut novel. And I ended up giving it 2 out of 5 stars. I just didn't jive with it. And then I got nervous and about Sufficiently Advanced Magic, and I went on and saw that people said that they were very disappointed with this after having read Sufficiently Advanced Magic as well. So I still have high hopes for that one, and I'll definitely try it out at some point. But this was just a little bit of a letdown for me. The next thing that I finished was The Gilded Girl by Alison Colman, if I remember correctly the author's name. This is a middle grade fantasy book. It follows this girl who is from a wealthy family. Her father is very, very rich. She comes to this school where they're able to do magic. She's turned like at the specific age where her magic is starting to gilding, is that what they're calling it. And so she's trying to come to this school to learn how to use her magic and all of that, but it's only a place for wealthy people, very, very rich people. Shortly after she comes there, her father passes away, leaving her without a penny, because I find out that something happened with his money, and suddenly she is not allowed to be part of the school, so she becomes a servant at the school instead. And the other perspective we're following from this poor girl has been the servant of this house for a very long time. They sort of team together in order to figure out collecting, I think they need a specific stone, I've forgotten what kind, in order to wield their magic, and they're trying to figure out how to get that so that they can still perform magic even though they are poor, because it's not like the magic is died out, it's just that they tell them that she's going to have this magic snuffed out of them kind of thing. I ended up super enjoying this one. I was very whimsical, and the magical system is very interesting. I enjoyed seeing this from 2 perspectives. One who comes from a really rich family and sort of figuring out how things are actually going for the poor people, and also one who is from the poor side of the things, and the sort of judgments she has. Like the word has slipped out from my mind, but you know, when people think something about someone else, prejudices about the other. It was very interesting getting both of these perspectives. And as time passed, we figure out that she finds friends from other places, and it was very entertaining. So I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. I definitely enjoyed it a lot. The second to last thing that I finished in April was The Deal by Elle Kennedy. This is the first book in the Off-Campus series, and this is a new adult series that I have seen a lot of people read, but always thought that I would never going to be interested in reading this, but then kept hearing about it and I got curious and I read it, and it has me persuaded. I have been putting up new adult romances for so long because I've read some that really didn't work for me. In this one we follow 2 perspectives, a man and a woman. Hannah and Gavin. Hannah is she's at college, is Briar University. She had a scholarship for the singing choir kind of part of it, and she is in the process of trying to create a song for the season final kind of thing. And if she wins this, she's able to get a scholarship that can get her further on into the next semester, and she comes from a pretty poor family, so she has a difficult time getting things, making ends meet in that area. Then we have Gavin, who is main star of the hockey team of the school. His father was a famous hockey player as well, and has sort of been funding his life all of his life. He has everything that he could ask for in terms of money and stuff, but he absolutely detests his father. And they end up coming in a sort of fake dating thing. Like, he is having to make another guy jealous of their relationship or interested in her, and he has to get her to help him with studying for this this school project thing. And their dynamics between them two is awesome. I just loved it. I loved the banter between them. I loved how they both became friends, and then when things evolved into a relationship, how that went. I overall just super enjoyed this one. I couldn't put it down. I kept on wanting to pick it up, and I ended up giving this book, I think, 4.5 stars. I definitely really enjoyed it, and I cannot wait to read on in this series. I don't know when it's going to be, but I don't think it's going to be that far into the future. But I've said that a lot of times with books that I really enjoy. But I'm hoping I can get to this next one in that series soonish. It has 5 books in this series, and then there's a Briar U series as well. So side characters from that. I know that people really love a romantic suspense series, so I could be interested in reading that as well. So we'll see what ends up happening. I'm gonna take it one book at a time and see if I will keep on jiving with her writing style. The last and final thing that I finished in April was Kiss of the Night by Sherrilyn and Kenyon. This is the 5th, I think the 4th book in the Dark Hunter series, but the 5th book that me and Shannon has been reading together in a buddy read, because the first one was a prequel story to this whole thing. And in this one we follow Wolf, who is our main male lead. We follow Cassandra, who is our main female lead. Wolf is known as the Viking of the Dark Hunters. He's immortal, and he comes from the Norse Viking Ages thing. And so he has definitely a lot of Scandinavian Norse qualities about him, like that way. And then we have Cassandra, who is an Apolite, half human, and she is destined to die on his 27th birthday, which is a horrible thing, but that is fate of the Apolites, that they die at this date. What happens is that Wolf has this curse surrounding him. It's curse surrounding him that he's not able, people aren't able to remember him when they've seen him. Like a couple of minutes later after they've seen him, people will forget them, except blood relatives. So his main mission in life is getting his only relative left, getting him an heir kind of thing, getting him to reproduce, so that someone in the future will be able to remember him. Because Dark Hunters are not allowed to be in the same proximity very long, because then they become... That's the thing going on when Dark Hunters are in the same proximity for too long of a time, and it doesn't work. Cassandra is at a bar one night when Wolf saves her, and at first she doesn't remember him, but then suddenly she starts having a dream, and they have a sort of togetherness, and then after that she's able to remember him. And not long after that, things happen, and she is chased down by all of the diamonds, because there's also a sort of thing surrounding her that if people kill Cassandra, it will remove the curse from the diamonds, and that's sort of why there's a lot of people after her constantly. So she's sort of been living in secret, but suddenly people find out that she's there, and things happen in that way. What I really enjoyed about this one was how much we got of the world building in this one. The introduction of the acolytes, the sort of underground system that they have, a sort of a secret city kind of thing that they had, was super interesting. I loved our two main characters in this one. I think it was different built up than the other ones. There are a lot of quieter scenes, but I really enjoyed them because I loved how the characters actually got to know each other. It was so much better written than the previous two books, in my opinion. And also I just loved Chris, who is like Wolf's relative far out. I'm really hoping there's going to be something with him in the future. And we have some other really interesting characters in here. And yeah, there was just a lot of really great moments. I'm so happy I'm reading this with Shannon, because Shannon and me, we sort of seem to agree on a lot of things with urban fantasies apparently, and paranormal romances. And so it's been a lot of fun discussing the books with her as we've come along. Although also I don't think I would have continued with the series if I hadn't this buddy read with her, because I really struggled, especially with Night Embrace, which is the third book that we read. But this one was just so good, and I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. I'm really happy to be back with this, and I'm looking forward to reading on. I think the next 2 books is actually not Sharon and Kenyon. In our buddy read, we're going to be reading someone else's book, but it's set in the same universe. So if we follow the Dark Hunter Legends series, this will be 2 books right after each other that is from about Arthurian legends, and I need to read that because Arthurian legends is super fun. And so I'm happy to say that we agreed on continuing with those before we get on with the regular Dark Hunter books. So yeah, looking forward to continuing with this series. And I've also ordered this one. It's part of the parcel that's on its way here. I'm hoping to get it here soon. But yeah, these were all of the things that I finished in April. Let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of the books that I've been talking about today. What were your thoughts on them, if you read them? Also let me know if you read anything exciting this month. Do you have any new recommendations to me? I'm always interested in hearing what you've been reading, if you have something that you think I would enjoy as well. Yeah, this was everything I have for today. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video very soon. Goodbye.